Welcome back to Fun with ADHD. I'm Patty Blinderman, an ADHD and executive function coach, and we're here to have some fun with our brains. So, I called this episode something I found really humorous to my brain, and that is that an adult with ADHD finishes a task because we struggle so much to finish what we start. And it really can be supported by finding what works for us. And so that leads me to what we're going to explore today and experiment with, and that is the missing manual for ADHD brains. What? A manual, you say? There's a manual for our brain? So if you think about the last time you bought a large or small appliance or a car, they all come with operating manuals. They all tell you how to use them and what to do to troubleshoot if things aren't working the way you expect it. Dr. William Dotson says the world gives every person a user's manual, an owner's manual, but for people with ADHD, it's the wrong manual. So I have a complex brain, a complex operating system, and it didn't come with any instructions. And through a big portion of my life, that was really frustrating to figure out, why does everybody else just get up and go do the thing that is on their list? And I really struggle to do anything that I'm not interested in. So imagine if you had your own operations manual, user's manual, owner's manual, as I call them, personal owner's manuals, POMs, that told you what gets your brain engaged, what gets you started, how to do the things you're trying to do with more ease and less resistance. Mine tells me how to start tasks, how to stay motivated, and what to do to kind of troubleshoot my brain when it doesn't do as I'm expecting it to do, when I'm expecting it to do it. So a troubleshooting section can be really fun. Before I go into more details about owner's manuals, I wanted to give a really brief history because I love learning about where did the idea of making instructions for how to use something come about? Like, when was that developed? Because whenever I watch movies that happened, 100 or more years ago, there weren't a lot of things we had to worry about, like how to. It was just very one purpose for one thing, like very obvious how you use it. But back in the industrial era, machines started to become more complex. And an inventor named James Watt wrote down the instructions for what are believed to be the first user's manual instructions on how to use a copy machine. And he took those instructions and glued them to the machine. That by itself makes me so happy because he didn't just write down how to use it. He put the instructions exactly where you would need to have them to go back and follow them again the next time you use it. The harder something is to use, the more valuable it is to have this type of documentation that you can tap into and follow. Helpful instructions that work for our brains are a game changer in thriving with ADHD. So because our brains operate differently, I want to highlight how I took what was presented at a conference I went to back in 2017, where I heard Dr. William Dotson speak and talked about how the world gives people with ADHD the wrong manual. It's like, like I said, like watching your neighbor, watching your coworker, watch other people in your family that don't have ADHD brain wiring do things, and it looks like magic. It looks like they just did it because they were supposed to. And we tend to get in a place of judgment about ourselves or feeling bad about how that doesn't, why can't I just do that? Why can't I just go fold the laundry, clean up, finish the work task, whatever it is? We're not broken. It's about figuring out what works for our unique brain wiring. So even if there's other people in your life with ADHD, what they do may not work for you. And it doesn't mean that you're broken. It means we need to figure out what does work for you. So it's about figuring out what does work and what doesn't and writing it down, like literally capturing that information so you don't have to keep being frustrated and reinvent the wheel. You have it stored in your owner's manual, your instructions for your brain. So that takes me back to 2017 when I took this statement that was made during that session at the conference. And I thought, okay, well, great, but how do I do that? How do I make an owner's manual for my brain? Where do you even start? Because the word manual just feels so big. So I created structure around that, and I've been running groups and creating materials to support people to create their own personal owner's manual since 2017. And what it basically is an externalized tool that works for your brain. So it's literally externalizing the processes and systems that work for your brain so that your brain isn't carrying the heavy load. You have it documented, you can tap back into it and pull from it. So you capture those patterns, you recognize the steps in the order that you do them and why they work for you, because you capture them because they do work for you, or you are able to say no to something because you know it doesn't work for you, because you've captured that evidence that shows the pattern of, yeah, I can do that, but not in this environment. Or I can work with one or two people, but if I get in a big group, I get really overwhelmed. It's noticing those patterns for yourself. So I have specific sections. So my personal owner's manual, because I've been building it since 2017, is huge. It's too large. I'm putting too many things in it. And it needs to be pared down, but it does have so much gold. Like, I've unearthed so many things that are so important to working with my brain. And some examples are, I have a section in here of evidence I can finish things because I don't finish a lot of things. And I need to remember, no, that's not true that I don't ever finish. It's that I struggle to finish certain things, but other things I can finish really easily. So then it's noticing, what are the patterns that lend themselves to me finishing more consistently? I have a whole section around my holiday traditions. I call it my holiday palm, where I capture what I do for the holidays to support me to remember, since they're a once a year thing. It just is so nice to go, okay, what order we do Christmas morning in again? And I just have a spreadsheet with a list of what we do, when we do it, and how we do it. So I don't have to remember. I have a list of games that my family likes to play, including games that we like to play as a big group, games that I can play one-on-one or in groups of two or three, like who likes what type of game. So we don't have to keep going through this was always a sticking point. If you checked out my other episode of Fun with ADHD, I talked about how much I love games, and it's been a real challenge because I don't have a family full of game players, but I do have members that like to play specific kinds of games. So it's about matching them and remembering what works and what doesn't work. So I have a tool to remember that. I have all of my planning tools in here, and what I did to customize them to make planning work for me. And one of my go-tos that we're going to play with and experiment is an ICNUP menu. So ICNUP is an acronym. It stands for interest, challenge, novelty, urgency, and sometimes passion. So it's the things that get our brain engaged, because ADHD brains are wired for interest. So I'm going to share my tools with you, and I'm going to share how I started and what the current tool looks like, so you can see how a personal owner's manual is something that grows over time with you. It's not a stagnant, like once you do it, you're done. You're always tweaking it and adding to it. There's no perfectionism here. It's just noticing, oh, that's better than nothing. But what would work even better would be if I did this, if I added this. So this is my first example of my first ICNUP menu. I literally just did a mind map where I wrote, the ICNUP in the center. And then for each category, I wrote examples that work for me. So for interest, I have play podcasts, but I wrote down specific podcasts I like to listen to. For different TV shows I like to watch while I'm like folding laundry or cleaning, I wrote down specific shows that work for me. So again, I'm not expecting my brain to remember. That takes effort, making it really easy to tap into. For novelty, I have down really quick things like change the order that you do something in, gamify it, use new colors. I'm very sensitive to coloring. I love a variety of colors. So I have lots of different colors of highlighters and pens and markers, and I will change them up so that creates interest for my brain. So it can be really simple little hacks, and it can also be more detailed. So it's just capturing what works for you. So over time, what I noticed was I don't even know why that arrow is there. Um, it didn't need to be there. See that one last little visual thing I have to think through, that I resist reading all the words. I like the information, but I wanted it more visual. So I made a more streamlined one that I can go to if I just need a quick example. And it looks like this, where I just made a flow chart, or not a flow chart, I'm sorry, a spreadsheet where I filled in the different interest. I've got the task on the left, and then I have the categories: novelty, competition, urgency, all of them across. And I put little images with barely any words to explain what I was talking about. So for my example, if I need to refill a prescription, which is something I have a lot of resistance to doing, and I struggle because it's so many steps: refill it, wait for it, confirmation that it's been filled and it's ready to be picked up, and then remembering to go pick it up. So I have a little reminder to look at the steps that I've captured. And then I have, the flow chart that tells me the order to do it in. And then I have reminders that make it sparkly, like look for any yard sales or estate sales in the area. There's a Dairy Queen right next to my pharmacy. So I might build in a reward to go to the DQ on the way out after I get my prescription. So the things that I have to do regularly, I made a more focused tool to help me remember the things that get me into action to get it crossed off with more ease. So an ICNUT menu is really about getting your brain engaged, which with ADHD brain wiring, getting started is one of the more difficult things that we struggle with. And it's pervasive. It happens in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different areas, and typically multiple times a day. So we have a lot of opportunities to practice and make it easier for us. So I wanted to share one other tool that I've created and tweaked over the years that I use to support my ICNUT menu, but it's just a reminder. So one of my things I was really struggling with for years was exercising consistently. And what I noticed was the term exercise was way too vague. So I made an exercise menu that, again, it's a very grid visual type of tool. And this is my flip personal owner's manual. So this allows me to identify the tabs that I use most frequently. And so I go to my exercise menu. And again, I have there, let me move it so you can see it. I have graphics that help me remember what I do for yoga, like what the yoga exercises are, what the weight resistance exercises are. If I need to get my cardiovascular kind of sweat exercise in, what I do to make that easier, like dancing or playing pickleball. And then I have a category of what I can do with others. So I can go on a walk, I can play pickleball, we can dance. It helps me remember there's more than one way for me to exercise. So I just made a menu of my favorite go-to things exercise-wise that work for me. And it's a reminder to create variety, to create interest, and to create ease with starting. So if you are intrigued by this idea, or you've heard about a personal owner's manual before, but struggled to implement it, I really encourage you to think about what would make it easy. Like what tool, what one thing would you capture to start? My personal owner's manual started with one tool, and it now is a full manual with customized sections for what work for my brain. If I gave you my owner's manual, you might find it really interesting, or you might find it overwhelming, or I don't know, but I can almost guarantee you it will not work for you because it's not for your brain, it's for my brain. So to start yours, I encourage you, start with what's most sparkly. And if you're not sure, try an ICNUT menu. Try the interest, novelty, urgency, challenge, and passion categories. Passion is one of those, you can't always tap into that, but if it's something that you can use, it's going to make it so much easier to create interest because it's what you're passionate about. So start with ICNUT. Start with the things you typically have a pattern around having a hard time beginning. It might be, like for me, my examples are emptying the dishwasher, refilling and picking up prescriptions, writing my newsletter and blog, making phone calls. Gosh, like that's such a hard thing for me. So I use that one a lot. and doing my bookkeeping tasks. These are all really boring things I dislike pretty much across the board, but I need to get them done. So these are my little reminders of what I can do to start a little bit more easily so that I am lowering the resistance so that I can get over it instead of it being so high that there's no way. I'm just hitting a wall every time I try to start. So if you start your own ICNUP menu to play with your brain in a way that supports it by making a personal owner's manual tool to support it better, I would love to hear about what works for you. Where did you begin? If you got stuck somewhere, there are lots of resources on my website, ADHD-Friendly. If you're looking for additional support, I do have a manual that I wrote. I literally wrote the book on how to create your personal owner's manual. And that is available for sale on my website. You can get a digital version. I think it's under $20. So really quick thing to access and tap into if you're looking for more support. But you don't need anything besides a piece of paper, a notebook, something that you're going to define as your personal owner's manual to begin. You can be online if you like. Pick one way to start. Don't try to do everything everywhere all at once. Just pick one tool, one spot to focus on, and notice how does it support you to have a tool to remember what does work for you in this instance. And remember, it's a flexible living tool. It's going to continue growing. The more you use it, the more you'll continue adding to it and noting how things work. So it's going to evolve to be more and more powerful the more you use it. That's it for this episode of Fun with ADHD. I hope you had some fun learning about personal owners manuals and how to use them to support your brain to struggle less and thrive more. Until next time, tally ho.